Can you believe it? Right in the middle of the crowded LAX airport, packed with travelers rushing for the holiday season, my own daughter-in-law Melissa looked me straight in the eye and said, "Sorry, Maureen, you're not on the list. Your ticket was forgotten. You'd better head home." My whole body froze. Boarding calls echoed from the loudspeakers, passengers hurried into lines, suitcases rattled across the floor. And there I was, standing alone, clutching my passport and the receipt showing I had paid over $40,000 for this family trip to Hawaii. A trip I thought would be the dream vacation with my son, my daughter-in-law, and my 2 grandchildren. But in truth, it was nothing more than a game of chess already played out, and the piece they decided to knock off the board was me. My son David kept his head down, pretending to study his ticket as if the tiny letters could save him from shame. My grandson, Noah, just 15, stared at me with confusion in his eyes, while little Lily burst into tears, clinging to her mother's hand. And Melissa, she simply shrugged, flashed a cold smile beneath her designer handbag, and said in a voice sweet as honey but sharp as a knife, "We can't miss this flight. You understand, don't you?" In that moment, the truth hit me like a slap. There was no system error, no ticket accidentally left behind. They had planned to cut me out from the very start, and they had used my hard-earned money to fund their so-called dream vacation. People often say the first reaction should be tears, begging, or despair. But at 70 years old, I've learned something. Reacting and responding are 2 very different things. And right there, in the middle of that airport, I made a choice I wouldn't shed a single tear. Instead, I would turn this betrayal into a brutal lesson for those who dared to treat me like nothing more than a walking ATM. I sat quietly in the back of a taxi leaving LAX, watching the streetlights of Los Angeles blur past the window. Melissa's words kept echoing in my head. "Your ticket was forgotten. You should just go home." If this had been me 10 years ago, I probably would have broken down in tears right at the boarding gate, begging them to find a solution. But tonight, all I felt was a hollow emptiness, along with a small flame inside me, burning hotter with every passing second. By the time the cab pulled up in front of my small house in Austin, it was already past midnight. I brewed myself a cup of hot tea, set my suitcase aside, and opened the old laptop I'd relied on for years. The screen lit up with a trail of receipts and reservations, hotel bookings, airline tickets, guided tours. Every single one was paid with my credit card. Every single one was in my name. A faint smile tugged at my lips. Melissa thought she could hide everything from me. But after more than 40 years as the wife of an accountant, I had grown accustomed to keeping every little financial detail. And now, that habit was about to become my greatest weapon. The luxury resort in Maui, 5 nights by the ocean, cost over $8,000. 4 first-class plane tickets, nearly $16,000. The tours, from dolphin watching to a Christmas Eve dinner on the beach, another $16,000. Altogether, almost $40,000, all paid for by me without a word of complaint. And now, with just a few phone calls, I could take it all back. I started with the hotel. The front desk clerk seemed surprised when I asked to cancel, but the moment they pulled up the reservation and saw my name, they confirmed it immediately. Because I had booked a flexible package, canceling within 24 hours meant a full refund. A soft click landed in my inbox, the cancellation confirmed. Next came the airline. The call dragged on for nearly 40 minutes, but in the end, the refund after cancellation fees still totaled almost $12,000. One by one, I went down the list. Every tour, every activity, canceled. Each refund confirmation in my email felt like a cold blade slicing through David and Melissa's so-called dream vacation. But the money wasn't the highlight, it was the message. I wrote a letter by hand, folded neatly, and planned to slip it into Melissa's luggage before their flight. In it, I wrote, "Dear Melissa, if I don't have a seat on that plane, then my money doesn't have a seat on this trip either. Remember, every action has consequences, and this time, the consequences will follow you all the way to Hawaii." I could already picture her face when she read it, eyes wide, lips pressed tight, her confidence crumbling in an instant. The thought alone filled me with a peace I hadn't felt in years. That night, I sat alone in the quiet of my kitchen, my phone buzzing nonstop with unread messages. I knew that in just a few hours, once they landed in Maui, their real nightmare would begin. And me, for the first time in decades, I no longer felt like the victim. I was in the driver's seat. I was the one writing this story, and I swore this was only the beginning. The next morning, just as I took a sip of coffee, my phone buzzed non-stop on the table. The screen lit up with a flood of messages from David. "Mom, there's a mistake at the hotel. They said the reservation was canceled. Do you know anything about this?" Another message popped up right after. "We're standing in the lobby with all our luggage. The kids are crying. They won't let us check in. Please, Mom, call me back." I flipped the phone face down on the table. Instead of rushing to respond, I calmly poured myself more coffee. In my little kitchen, the scent of fresh brew mingled with the morning sunlight streaming through the window. Everything felt peaceful here. Meanwhile, halfway across the Pacific, I knew they were drowning in chaos. An hour later, the phone was still exploding with messages. Each one carried a new tone: panic, then anger, then pleading. "Mom, this isn't funny anymore. Mom, the kids are terrified. Please, just explain, you're still on our side, right?" Then came Melissa's text. "Linda, do you think this childish stunt is funny? We're stranded in a foreign country with 2 kids. You will take responsibility for this." I let out a bitter smile. Responsibility? Wasn't she the one who left me stranded at the airport just hours earlier? Amid the flurry of texts, a new notification appeared from Lily. Her words were simple, but they pierced through me. "Grandma, I don't understand what's happening. Mom's crying, Dad's angry. I miss you. I wish you were here." My heart sank. The kids, they were innocent. They hadn't chosen any of this, and they didn't deserve to bear the weight of their parents' cruelty. I typed out a reply, but deleted it right away. I knew I couldn't step in, not yet. If I broke the boundary now, everything I had done would lose its meaning. By noon, the phone rang again this time. A video call. I almost ignored it, but when I saw David's face framed on the screen, with the chaos in the background, I answered. The camera shook, revealing Noah and Lily huddled on plastic chairs at a street-side cafe. "Mom," David's voice cracked. "The hotel refused to let us in. There are no rooms left in the area. We had to find a cheap place instead. Noah's been running a fever since last night, and Lily hasn't stopped crying. Please, tell us what's going on." Behind him, Melissa snatched the phone, her face flushed with rage. "What the hell did you do? Cancel the hotel? Cancel the backup flights? Do you want to see these kids sleeping on the street?" I inhaled deeply, keeping my voice calm and steady. "Melissa, I did something very simple. I took back what was mine. If I wasn't on this trip, then my money wasn't either." "You're cruel," Melissa screamed. "No," I replied evenly. "I'm just learning how to set boundaries." I ended the call, leaving the screen dark and the kitchen silent. Inside, I was torn apart. My mind was satisfied watching them taste the consequences, but my heart ached for those children. Deep down, I knew this was only the first ripple of the storm to come. 3 days later, the flood of messages and calls from David and Melissa suddenly stopped. I thought they'd managed to work things out. But then, on a rainy afternoon in Austin, my landline rang. An unfamiliar number showed up with an international code. I picked up. A man with a slightly accented voice said, "Hello, this is Lieutenant Nakamura with the Maui Police Department. Are you Maureen Harris?" My heart dropped. "Yes, this is she. Is something wrong with my family?" He exhaled softly. "No one is hurt, ma'am. Please don't worry. But your son and daughter-in-law are currently being detained in connection with leaving the hotel without settling the bill. The children, Noah and Lily, are with them." It felt like the world collapsed around me. "Oh my God, what about the kids? Are they safe?" "They're okay for now," he replied. "But this can't go on." The hotel reported an unpaid balance of more than $2,000. If it isn't resolved, we'll have to refer the case to the local court. At that point, the children could be placed into the care of Child Protective Services within a few days. I sat utterly still. 2 opposing thoughts warred in my head. On one hand, I wanted David and Melissa to face the consequences they deserved, the humiliation after everything they'd done. On the other, the idea of my grandchildren shivering in an unfamiliar shelter on Christmas night made my chest ache. Lieutenant Nakamura asked, "Would you consider covering the minimum amount owed so the hotel will withdraw the complaint? If you agree, your family can be released immediately." I bit my lip and closed my eyes. I knew exactly what paying now would teach Melissa, that if she dragged the children into this, I would crumble. But what about Noah and Lily? They didn't deserve to be held in a police room in a strange place. Finally, I whispered, I'll pay. But only the minimum, the room charges and meals actually used. Not a penny for any luxury items or services they charged on their own. Understood, ma'am. I'll arrange for the hotel to contact you directly. When the call ended, I set the phone down, feeling both relieved and furious. I had saved my grandchildren, but I also knew Melissa would see this as proof she had won, that a little pressure would make me give in. Soon after, David called. His voice shook. Mom, thank you. We know we don't deserve it, but Noah and Lily need you. Thank you for saving them. I answered curtly. You're wrong, David. I didn't save you. I protected Noah and Lily, and you should understand the difference. After the call, I sat in the kitchen and listened to the rain tapping on the porch. I knew the real battle wasn't over. Melissa would try to turn things around, but this time, I was prepared. And I promised myself no one would ever make a puppet out of me again. They came back on a late flight the afternoon before Christmas, haggard faces and hollow eyes. I didn't go to the airport to meet them. I sat by the window and watched the snow pile up on the yard. I wanted them to feel the coldness of their own actions. I wanted them to cross that threshold by themselves. The next morning, there was a hard, urgent knock at the door. I opened it to find David on the porch, his coat thrown on, eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. Melissa stood behind him, lips pressed tight, equal parts tense and furious. Noah and Lily huddled together like two fledglings blown from the nest. Mom, we need to talk, David said, his voice hoarse. I didn't invite them in right away. I looked him square in the face and said quietly, if you want to talk, fine. But if you're here to ask for money, this door will be closed. We sat at the kitchen table. I had prepared a folder, a packet drafted by my attorney. A will amendment, an educational trust for Noah and Lily, and a formal notice terminating all financial support for David and Melissa. I placed the folder on the table and pushed it toward them. This is my decision. As of today, I will no longer fund anything for your family. The house, the cars, tuition, vacations, those are on you. I was a mother. I've sacrificed enough. Now I need to be a woman who protects herself. David took the folder, hands trembling. As he scanned the figures, more than $200,000 over 5 years, his face went pale. Melissa snatched it, read a few lines, and slammed it down. You can't do this. You owe us. Without you, how would we keep the house? How will the kids have a future? I lifted my chin and met her eyes. Melissa, you're wrong. I don't owe anyone. I gave because I wanted to, not out of obligation. And you turned my kindness into a burden. That ends now. The room tightened like a drawn bow. David looked down, silent. Melissa trembled with anger, then spat out a knife-sharp threat. If you do this, you'll never see Noah and Lily again. I swear it. Silence dropped over the room. Then, unexpectedly, Noah stepped forward and said, firmly, Mom, stop. Grandma didn't do anything wrong. The ones who are wrong are you and Dad. Lily burst into tears and ran to me, wrapping her arms around my waist, whispering, I don't want to be away from you. Those words stunned Melissa into silence. Her defiance crumbled in an instant. David lifted his head, put a hand on his wife's shoulder, voice breaking, We can't keep living like this. I smoothed Lily's hair, looked at Noah, then fixed my gaze on David. Son, remember this. Love in a family isn't bought with money. It only exists where there is respect. If you and your wife want to hold this family together, start with truth and responsibility. The snow kept falling, white and relentless on the porch. Inside, a huge weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I knew this wasn't just a confrontation, it was a turning point for the rest of our lives. 6 months have passed since that fateful day. Summer in Austin blazes with sunlight, the trees in my yard lush and green, and for the first time in years, my soul feels truly at peace. David and Melissa are still together, but the showy arrogance is gone. They had to sell their luxury SUV and move into a smaller house out in the suburbs. I've heard David is working extra jobs, while Melissa started helping out in retail full-time. Their lives are harder now, but those are the hardships they need to finally learn how to stand on their own feet. What brings me the greatest peace, though, are Noah and Lily. Every weekend they come to my house, carrying their school books, telling me about what they've learned. I opened a separate trust account to guarantee their college tuition will never be in jeopardy. Whenever I see Noah's eyes light up as he talks about becoming an engineer, or listen to Lily dream out loud about being a pediatrician, I know I made the right choice. I am not nurturing dependency. I am nurturing their future. Melissa tried a few times to come by the house, bringing her usual tone blame, accusations that I tore the family apart. But every time, Noah stood firm and defended me. Lily would slip her hand into mine, a silent confirmation that they knew the truth. And little by little, Melissa stopped coming. David was different. He began to change. Sometimes he calls not to ask for money, but simply to ask how I'm doing, to share small details about his job. Maybe he finally understands the difference between a mother and a wallet. I don't know if he's completely free of Melissa's influence, but I can see that at least he has started to learn responsibility. As for me, I've learned the greatest lesson of my life. Family love can never be bought with money. I paid too much, not just in dollars, but in trust and tears. Yet in return, I discovered that only when I set boundaries could I truly be respected. Now, each morning, I sit in the garden with a hot cup of tea in hand, listening to the birds, reading an old novel. I no longer live in fear of being used. I no longer flinch when the phone rings. I am free, and that freedom is worth more than any dollar I ever spent. And if you're hearing this story, maybe you too have felt what it's like to be taken advantage of, disrespected, turned into nothing but a financial tool in your own family. I want you to remember this. You are not a walking wallet. You deserve love and respect, even when you don't pay a dime. And if this story touched you, leave a comment below. Share your own experience, because your story matters just as much as mine. And don't forget to hit subscribe, so you don't miss the journeys of reclaiming justice and rediscovering self-worth. Because sometimes, a single story told aloud can change someone's life forever.